Voting Theory Class 12 Video 1. In this video we're going to begin talking about gerrymandering. Before we can get on to the definition of exactly what gerrymandering is and how it works, I first want to tell you what type of elections we're going to be considering from now on. So from now on, we will mainly be considering elections of the following form. So they will be plurality. They will have exactly two alternatives. And most importantly, well, they're all important, but this one is equally important. They will have multiple winners. Okay, so from now on, the elections we consider are going to be a bit different to what we've been considering throughout this module. Throughout this whole module, we've only really been considering elections where there's a social ranking and there's like a clear winner. There's a first place, second place, third place, and so on and so on. Well, from now on, I want to consider elections where you elect multiple people, okay? And I'm going to assume it's always going to be plurality, and there's only going to be two alternatives. So they're not necessary for gerrymandering. Gerrymandering can happen even if it's not plurality and even if there are more than two alternatives, but it's this is the easiest case, okay? It's also arguably the most realistic and applicable case. So from now on, we will only consider plurality, two alternatives, and multiple winners. So what type of situations am I talking about when I in this sort of situation? Well, the archetypal example is probably like a state in the USA electing new representatives or new senators. Okay, so states are assigned a certain number of representatives for the House or senators. Okay, and how they elect them is the type of system, the type of voting system that we want to think about at the minute. So let's look at an example. For example, in Indiana, there are 9 seats available to the House of Representatives. Okay, so this means that you have this map of Indiana, people vote in Indiana, and somehow you need to decide which 9 people, like who won the 9 seats. Okay, so this means that this map needs to be sort of cut up into 9 districts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It needs to be cut up into 9 districts, where each district is sort of in charge of electing one of these representatives. Okay. And the obvious question to ask is, how do you divide up the state? So, how to divide up the state, right? Where to draw these lines? I drew these lines pretty randomly, but there has to be some sort of sensible way of doing this. Well, this is what the official districting looks like in Indiana, okay? This is the official districting for Indiana. I think it's been in effect since 2012, and they tend to redraw it after the census, because notice a few things, like they're not all the same size. Not all the same size, but they are supposed to have like roughly equal populations. Roughly equal. That's why this one's so small, because Indianapolis isn't there, right? So they're supposed to have roughly equal populations, and this is the one that's used officially to determine the House of Representatives. Okay, but the question and the topic we're going to be thinking about is gerrymandering, and gerrymandering is this definition right here. So gerrymandering is the act of manipulating these boundaries with the intention of affecting the outcome of the election. Okay, so this is a general definition, And in subsequent videos, we're going to do lots of examples to show how this is possible. But abstractly, gerrymandering is the act of purposefully drawing these district maps, like this district map right here, so that you influence the outcome of the election. Okay? So why is this a thing? Why would people do this? Well, there's a few reasons why people would gerrymander. Okay? The first reason, perhaps the most common reason, is partisan gerrymandering. And this is just, you gerrymander to establish an advantage for one party over another. So imagine, like, if you're a politician and you're in charge of drawing these maps and you want to be re-elected. Well, maybe you have an incentive to redraw the maps in a way that helps you get re-elected. Okay? I mean, I'm not saying you do any sort of electoral fraud or lying on the ballots, but there are other methods like gerrymandering which can help political parties have an advantage in an election. Another form of gerrymandering which is being used a lot over the years is racial gerrymandering. And racial gerrymandering is just any gerrymandering where the intention is to suppress the views of minority groups. Okay? And it's called racial gerrymandering, but I think you still use this name even if the minority isn't defined by a race. So even if the minority is defined by something other than a race, so people still call it racial gerrymandering. Okay? But the idea is you want to suppress the views. You don't want, well, I'm saying you. The idea is, hypothetically, someone would not want a minority group gaining power. So they try to suppress their views via gerrymandering. Both of these are often considered bad. Okay? Like, these are not nice things to do. The first one often is considered an erosion of democracy. Okay? And the second one is just like racism or homophobia or whatever prejudice you want. So both of these tend to be considered bad. The third one is actually usually considered good, but I'll say usually, not universally considered good. Okay? The third type is affirmative gerrymandering. And affirmative gerrymandering is sort of like the opposite of racial gerrymandering. The idea is you create a majority-minority district to enhance the voter strength of minority groups. Okay? So the picture is something like this. So imagine this is a map of your state or whatever, and for some reason or another, there is a region within your state which is heavily minority. Whatever minority you want, for some reason or another, there's a region within your state which is heavily minority. Well, affirmative gerrymandering would try to make it so that these group of people have someone elected. So what they could do is, when it comes to dividing up the state, could divide up the state like this. Okay? And if it's divided up like this, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then the 5th district would be very representative for the pink people, whoever the pink people are. Okay? This is the idea of affirmative gerrymandering. And just so you know, like what the opposite case is, if I try and draw the same situation again, so pink people like this, racial gerrymandering would be dividing up the state something like this. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but notice in none of the 5 districts does the pink have a majority. So this minority group, the pink people, they won't elect anyone to any of the 5 districts. So they won't be represented in this election. Whereas on the left, they have a representative. They'll have the 5th district. Okay. This is the three main uses of gerrymandering. Okay, and like I say, the first two are often considered bad, and the third one is often considered good. Not by everybody, but it's often considered good. Okay, that's the end of this video.